Hi, this is Jim Peters with Peters Principles. As you know, you never know who you're going to get on Peters Principles, and this time we snatched a really good one. I have with me Dr. Titus Plomaritis. Dr. Titus Plomaritis wrote a book on his life right here called Titus, which you can pick up at the Demula store, right?
Yes, well,
if you're there.
If you're there, they can pick it up. I'm on a book signing tour right now, and I'm covering all 77 Market Basket stores. And
there are 77 of them?
77.
Oh,
I've covered 9 already, and the response has been very good, Jim.
That's good. I worked at Market Basket for a couple of years back in high school, and I think they had 4 stores. This is going way back.
I can go way back when they had 1 store.
One store, okay. All right. And Dr. Plomaritis is not getting any money from this book. I
donate 100% of the proceeds from the book to scholarships.
Right.
And so far, we've given out $55,000 in scholarships in the past 3 years.
Okay.
In the Lowell High School and Pelham High School are the 2 high schools that are recipients of these scholarships.
Oh, okay, good. What's an average scholarship? How much is an average scholarship?
The one the high scholarship at Lowell High School is $10,000.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And it's payable $2,500 per year, as long as they keep up their grades and they continue in school.
Right. Okay. Now, what is keeping up their grades? Is that a C average or a B average?
Or they have to have a 3.0 or better.
Okay. All right. I'm just checking to make sure that I would have been eligible, and I would have been. So that's good. Let's talk about the high school a little bit. As you know, it's always in the paper right now, and it was in the paper again this morning. How did the high school influence your life? It certainly influenced mine, so I'd just like to tell stories about it.
Oh, I'd love to. I can reflect the first day I went into Lowell High School. I came from Varnum Avenue at that time. I think we previously discussed Gorham Street to Varnum Avenue. Mm-hmm. Now I'm 14 years old and I'm going into high school. And it was in the old building at that time. They had the old building,
right,
and you had the new building, which is really old when you're comparing it to the one they built many years later with, right, the canal. But let me relate to how high school affected me. When I was a freshman in high school, Ray Sullivan, the headmaster, Mr. Sullivan we call him, was instrumental in putting me on the right track, because I was a little bit of a disciplinary problem, and I didn't really know what the 7 tenets were all about. Now I do. I know what respect means, and I can give him total credit for that.
Right.
He put me in the right direction. He explained to me the responsibility of having respect for your elders and respect for your teachers, and you have to respect those even if you don't agree with them. You have to respect them if they have a position. And that was very instrumental in one of my major tenets in the scholarship program that I have. And I'd like to relate how Mr. Sullivan was instrumental in my development, sure, in my military service, because that's what came when I became a junior in high school. The war had just finished, and the recruiters were coming to the high school, and they were recruiting junior and senior students to receive the full GI Bill of Rights and go to Japan and relieve the troops.
Right.
And Mr. Sullivan was very instrumental in taking me aside like a parent, and he said, Titus, I know that you have parents that came from the old country, and they have their beliefs that once you get a certain age, you have to go to work and help provide for the rest of the children. He said, and I think that the military would be a great opportunity for you, because otherwise you may not get a chance to go to college. He said, that'll guarantee you an entrance to college. And I took him up on that advice, and I enlisted in the military. Mm-hmm. And if I may, I'll tell you how I ended up in Japan.
Okay. I would like to point out that my father was in Japan, one of those people that you were going to be relieving. He was on the USS Cecil, and he served in Japan as part of the occupying troops.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. When I first went in the military, of course, they sent us to Fort Dix in New Jersey, and from there they sent us to Fort Bragg for our basic training.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the basic training, they were looking for volunteers to go into the paratroopers to go to Japan.
Right.
And I like the term paratrooper because I can envision people jumping out of airplanes.
Right.
And I like the idea of going to Japan. So I signed up to be a volunteer for the physical fitness program, and I qualified. So they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia. Fort Benning, Georgia, I was there for 12 grueling weeks. In the last 5 days included 5 jumps. One, they give you a big parachute, and you're jumping into a nice plowed field that's nice and soft.
Right.
So you got a good soft landing. And each one gets a little tougher. On the 5th one, you're jumping out from 1,200 feet, almost like a combat jump, and you have your backpack on, and you have your rifle by your side, and you're really heavy, and you come with a small parachute, so you're hitting the ground with a tremendous amount of force.
Right.
And that's where the physical fitness from Lowell High School got me in that physical fitness condition, because I was on the football team my freshman year, sophomore year, and we're just going into the junior year. So I had a lot of football and physical fitness background going into that position, which was very helpful to me.
Well, you wrote about that at some great length in terms of the types of exercises you had to do and the all of that
That's
stuff.
right. Once I went into the paratroopers, and they shipped me to Japan, the first thing they were telling us over in Japan, I mean, we're going through the physical fitness of the paratrooper school was very difficult, and that's where we had to get up and run 5 miles before breakfast, and we had between doing the push-ups and the sit-ups and the chin-ups and the rope climbing and jumping off the small tower, then the medium tower, then the high tower.
Right.
Boy, you got a lot of physical fitness in that program. But then when we got to Japan, they were having tryouts for a football team. They call it the 11th. I was on the 11th Airborne, and I said, "Gee, I'll try out for the football team. I played high school for 3 years. I should be I should have a chance." So I signed up for it, and it was
you were 5'9", right?
I was 5'5" and 155.
Okay.
All fives, Jim.
Okay. All right. That's easy to remember.
Okay. So when I signed up, there were 200 people that signed up for the football team. So you can, and looking at most of them, they were college players, and some of them were professional players that had to do their service in the military. So it wasn't very likely that a high school kid is going to make this team.
Right.
But I signed up for it, and I went out, and I was out there for maybe 30 minutes when one of the assistant coaches come over, and he taps you on the shoulder. That means turn in your shoes and your uniform. You've been eliminated.
Right.
But they had a big group of kids in there, and they had a lot of outstanding athletes. So I turned in my uniform, and 2 days later, I'm out there watching one of my buddies that still made the team, and he was a lineman from Cohasset, a real big kid, 6'6", 250 at that time. That was a giant.
Right.
I went out to
6'6",
watch him.
250?
Yeah.
Is that the picture that you have in the book?
In the book, that's him with Jack
Okay.
Petrolia, and I are in the book. He used to pick me up and put me on his shoulders and walk around like I was a toy. But I went out to watch him. He was still on the team after 3 days. And this particular day, they were having kicking practice. I'm watching. At that time now, Lou Groza was the premier kicker. He played with the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
And everybody that was a tackle in the United States thought that they could kick like a Lou Groza. So over there was the same way. They had all these big guys that were well over 200 pounds and well over 6 feet kicking the ball, but they were kicking the ball with a thump. You can see there was no punch in the ball. So I'm watching them. I said, wow, I can kick a ball better than that. They're kicking them about 40, 45 yards. So I went down to the receiving area where the people are catching the kicks
Right.
and running them back. So I went over there, and a couple of stray kicks came my way. So I put it on the ground, and I had a two-step delivery, 1-2 kick. And when I hit the ball, it was like being on the South Common all over again. You heard pow, and the ball went up with that nice back spin.
Right.
So I did 3 or 4 of those, and you could hear them, and you could see the coaches all following the ball. So the head coach said to one of the assistant coaches, "Who's that kid over there?" He said, "We took his uniform away on the first day." He said, "Give it back to him. He's our kicker." So that's how I made the team.
Good for you. Okay. Yeah, I read about that in the book, and you would be surprised how many things are in the book about getting ready for football.
Right.
And actually becoming a football player in the Lowell High School. And you have some interesting stories.
Well, if you want, I'll continue with this, Jim.
Yeah.
I made the team as a kicker, and the captain on the team was also a military captain, and he was a left halfback. They had, I was a reserve halfback. There were 3 or 4 guys ahead of me, but I was primarily the team kicker. So by the time we get halfway through the season, through injuries and whatever else, there's only 2 halfbacks left. There's the captain on the team at left halfback and me. At that time, there were left half, right half, quarterback, and they didn't have this what they call single platoon system.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody played both ways when you're in there. You had to go both ways.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So by the time we got to the end of the year, most of the people were hurt, and we were getting ready for the very last game, and it rained all night, and the field was very muddy, and it was overcast, and they were having showers.
Right.
So the captain of the team and the captain in the military stepped in a hole, a puddle, a mud hole, and he sprained his ankle.
Oh.
Oh, and he was really hurting. And he said to the coach, he said, "Coach, Titus knows the plays. Why don't you start him, and maybe I can back him up in case he gets hurt." He said, "But my ankle is really killing me." I think he was just trying to give me a break.
Maybe.
Make a long story short, we played the game 0-0 with about 2 minutes to go in the game. And Jack Petrolia is
the big guy.
He's a big guy, and he's the tackle. And we're about on the 6-7 yard line, and the coach calls Titus to carry the ball 4 consecutive plays. And on the last play, I'm in the I think we're in that heavy mud, probably picking up 1 or 2 yards on each carry,
right,
and getting in there. And the game ended. We won the game 6-0. They tried to point after, but in the mud, when you put the ball down to kick it, the ball sinks in the mud, and you can't kick it. So
okay,
I missed the point after. We won the game 6-0. And on Stars and Stripes, that's a military overseas magazine,
right,
a newspaper. They had me on the front page of that magazine in the mud. You saw Jack Petrolia in that picture,
right,
too, and they had us in there on the front page of that Stars and Stripes. I was so excited, I made a copy of it, and I sent it to Lowell High School. I sent it to Stanley Starklosa because he used to write to me once a month. He was
good.
He was my pen pal, and he was the baseball captain, a coach.
Right, right.
So now we'll get back to high school, okay?
Okay.
Come back to high school now, and everybody at the high school must have got a copy of that clipping because he made copies of it. He was proud of me. And I came back to high school, and the Lowell Sun sends a photographer out there to take a picture of Titus coming back from the United States Army paratroopers and going back to high school to play football.
Right.
I came back to high school because Ray Sullivan, when I was leaving, he gave me one of his handshakes, and he had arthritis in his hand. And in the handshake, there was a piece of paper. And I looked at the paper, and it had 2 phone numbers. And he said, the first number is my home number, and the second number, no, the first number is the high school number, and the second number is my house number. If you need any help, because he gave me a USAFI program, which is a high school program that's coordinated with the military to keep your grades coordinated so you can go back and finish your high school.
Right.
So he went through that trouble to give me this information, and he gave me the 2 phone numbers. I never had to call them, but I had those, and I had them in my possession all the time I was in the military. So now coming back, he greeted me with open arms like a father. Really, he was really great. And I went out to football practice the first day, and I met Ray Riddick for the first time.
Okay.
And he was like 6'6", 265.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He played for the Green Bay Packers. He played opposite Don Hudson, who was an all-pro end. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and it was like a bear. And he said, "Titus, welcome back to high school." I said, "Thank you very much, Coach." And I was a little bit overweight because when I was over there, when the football season ended, and you're in the military, they give you 3 good meals a day. So I put on some weight. I came back about 10 pounds overweight. And we were at the practice, and he said the coach had these big cards, and he had the players on them, so he could stand in front of the people in the huddle, and he would show the play, and we'd watch him. Every player had his signal. The tackle had to block this man, the end had to block that man. Everybody had an assignment. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching it for about 10 minutes, and then the coach said to me, "Titus, jump in there at left halfback." So I jump in, and he's showing up the play, and I'm looking at it, and it's a simple play. It's a single wing, and it was going off to the right tackle. Mm-hmm. So I followed the blockers, and I'm looking at these kids, and I'm saying, there's no way these guys are going to stop me. I'm playing over in Japan with these college and professional players. I'm looking at the kids on the second team on defense, and I just went through with that mentality that these guys couldn't stop me. I probably bounced off a couple of them on the way, but I went for a touchdown on the first time I carried the ball. But when I got to the end, I'll tell you, I was sucking wind. I was exhausted. I could hardly breathe. So I get back to the huddle, and I say, I'm glad that the coach told me to step back again so get somebody else in there. But now I'd like to tell you the most important part of my entire life happened at the high school on Friday night. On Friday nights, the Lowell High School kids and the Keith Academy boys and the girls from Keith Hall
right,
all met at the Immaculate Conception Auditorium,
okay,
where they had what they call it a hoodsy hop, a dance.
Right.
And it gave a good chance for almost all the kids of that age, high school age, throughout the city, would gather there, and they would dance. Well, I went there with a couple of my high school buddies, mm-hmm, and I feel pretty cocky now. I got on my zoot suit, and I got on my paratrooper boots. I'm trying to look good, and I see this cute chick standing in the corner with her classmates over there. And I said to my buddy, I said, "Who's that cute little girl over there?" They said, "That's Claire Smokey Hebert." I said, "Smokey, did she smoke?" They said, No, but she's a ball of fire. You got to watch out. She's a crackerjack." So I said, "Wow." I kind of got my clothes together, fixed my necktie, and I walked over. I says, "Claire, could I have this dance?" She said, "No." Well, I wasn't used to being rejected like that. I said, "No." I said, "Wow." So I walked back to my buddy and I said, "Can you believe that? She told me no." I said to him, "Where does she live? I'm going to have to see if I can get over there," because I was a salesman. When I came back, I had a little trouble communicating with my dad, so I figured it's best if I got a room downtown somewhere and get a job and support myself, because I was a veteran, and I figured it's time to start learning how to take care of yourself too.
right.
So I got a job selling Watkins products. That was like a door-to-door salesman.
Right.
This is a good, cute little story now. So I found out where she lived on Aiken Avenue, and I found out that her father was a professional boxer. He had 105 professional fights. Frankie Hebert, actually Frank Sargent, the sports editor of the Lowell Sun, did a feature article on when he died of an automobile accident when I was going to chiropractic college in New York. Anyway, getting back to Claire, I found out that she lived on Aiken Avenue. So Saturday morning now, I'm dressing up and I'm putting on that only necktie I got. I shine my shoes and I go over to 89 Aiken Avenue. I knock on the door. This gentleman comes out. He's wearing a T-shirt, He's kind of a little bit overweight. He has very little hair, if any. And he says, "What can I do for you, son?" I says, "I'm your Watkins product salesman, your door-to-door salesman. I have some outstanding specials. Can I come in and show them to you?" He said, "All right, come on in." So I walk in. What do I see? I see his 4 daughters lined up on the table with those big curlers on their hair. That's how they did their hair in that time,
Right.
and a towel on top of that. And I look at my cute little Claire standing right there, one of the 4 girls.
Right.
And I got to tell you this now. I looked at her and my heart was beating. And I said, I got to open this little case now and try to impress her what kind of a good salesman I am. I opened up my case and I ended up selling 2 bottles of coconut oil shampoo to her father that only had 3 hairs on his head. So I proved that I was a salesman. And he said to me, he says, anybody that has the moxie to go selling products like this door to door deserves a sale. That was his pitch to the girls.
Yeah.
And that was my pride and glory of really making contact with my wife for 65 years.
Okay, so roughly what year was this? 48?
That was in 1948.
Right.
I got discharged from Japan. Japan, they sent me back, and I got discharged in what was it? Seattle, Washington. Right, Seattle, Washington, and we drove home. Now, this is another little interesting tidbit. When you signed up, it was an 18-month deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you were shipped to Japan, the 18-month hitch was reduced to 15 months. So that got me back to high school 3 months earlier. Mm-hmm. And that's how I made the spring jamboree and made the football early in the season.
Well, what I'd like to talk about next time you're here, because we're not going to have enough time today, but is the famous football game, the Lawrence Lowell football game.
I could fill your trunk up with football stories.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a couple of them because I know that you have them. And you had an outstanding son who was an outstanding quarterback, Titus.
Titus Jr., right?
Titus Jr. And he played on the
He was a
1971 team?
I'll give you that little tidbit. That's good. It's worth repeating. In 1948, Lowell High School had its first undefeated team dating back to 1890.
Mm-hmm.
In 1970, Lowell High School had its last undefeated football team. And Titus Jr. was the quarterback of the 1970 team, and I was the left halfback doing the passing for Lowell High School in the 1948 team. Can you believe that? They haven't had one before 1948, and they haven't had one since 1970. I
can believe that. I watched. I was on the team, but I was the bench warmer. So I didn't get to play. I didn't get to play much because every game was important.
Right.
Right. So.
Well, Titus today, Titus Jr. is an orthopedic surgeon in Kansas, and he's also a master falconer, and he trains.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's a master falconer. He trains. He trains hawks, owls, and eagles to capture and kill jackrabbits. And he's on a mission to have this great feast that's never been done on television to kill, what do you call them, coyotes.
Okay.
That are they're damaging all the grain fields out in Kansas,
right.
And they would love somewhere. They don't like to use pesticides, so they said if he can bring his eagles out there and get those coyotes, they'd love it. So that's what he's working on.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear he's working on something besides orthopedic surgery. But I think orthopedic surgery is kind of a big thing. So he was a chiropractor at first, right?
No. I'll give you the background. Stephen, my other son, was he went to Bishop Girton because Lowell High School wouldn't take kids from Pelham at that time. So he went to Bishop Good and he wanted to play football. He got a scholarship to Colby College up in Maine, Waterville, Maine.
Right.
And from there, he went to osteopathic school. And he was going to come back and work with me.
Oh, okay.
And while he was in osteopathic school, he was encouraged to go to continue on to orthopedics. So now he's an osteopathic orthopedist, and Titus is a medical orthopedist. So they're competing with each other. And Stephen is the one that took care of Nancy Kerrigan. Stephen got notoriety across the whole United States. He's the one that took care of Nancy Kerrigan, because they were having the Olympic trials at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, and Stephen was taking care of the Detroit hockey players, the skaters.
Right. Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. You must be very proud.
I am very proud.
Yeah. Okay. That's all that we have time for today. This is Jim Peters on Peters Principles, and we're having Dr. Titus Plomaritis back again because he's got a lot more to talk about. So we'll cover his. I want to get the Lowell Lawrence game of 1948.
I'd be very happy to give you that one. Yeah.
All right, that's a good one. And today we covered almost everything we had written down here, so that's good. This is Jim Peters with Peters Principles. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.